To the Toss Up. My name is Leonard Blair. My partner Sky Bennett cannot be here with me today. I'm here with one of my mentors, one of my good friends, Matt Vega. Matt currently works here in the OCO. You want to tell him a little bit?
Yeah, I am the Assistant Director of the Office of Christian Outreach, and I am the Director of Summer Ministries. So, Youth Hostel Ministry, YHM, Student Ministry Partners, and SMP, and then Global Urban Perspectives, GUP. We send students out over the summer for anywhere from 6 to 10 weeks. So, yep,
That's amazing.
That's what I do.
And also, a little fun fact, Matt recently just got accepted into Yale, so I'm just going to brag on him a little bit. So Matt, what is your family background?
I have 5 siblings, so I'm one of 6. I'm number 4 and the youngest boy. So there's 3 boys and 3 girls. So I have 2 older brothers, 1 older sister, and then 2 younger sisters. One of which goes to who's a senior here at Wheaton.
Yeah.
We were all raised by my mother, and so my 2 younger sisters have a different father than myself and my older siblings, but we all have only understood one another as like full siblings. But yeah, we were raised by my mom, Linda, and then my dad is in the area, Chicago, and my sister's dad is also kind of in the area. Yeah,
that's awesome. Along with that, what would you say? How would you identify yourself ethnically, racially?
Racially, I am a complicated racially. I'm very complicated racially because I have brown skin.
Yeah.
And my last name is Vega, so I very easily pass for Latino. And I've grown up in Latino neighborhoods, and I'm conversational in Spanish. But I was also raised by a black woman. And I've lived probably mostly in predominantly black communities. It's probably like a back and forth between black and Latino communities. So sometimes I go by Blaxican, and sometimes I go by Blatino. Yeah, it's complicated because but the things that I'm interested in, topics that I'm interested in relate to issues particular to the black community. Yeah. And yet my skin does work for me. I'm not black.
Yeah.
I'm brown. So, yeah, I'm a complicated person.
So yeah. It's interesting you said that. One of the reasons I was drawn to you when I first met you was because I felt like you were a Christian, former theology major, am I correct? Mm-hmm. And also you were, I don't know how you feel about the term, you were, in my eyes, an activist. Yeah. And I really appreciated that unique complex. You want to speak into that a little bit? Yeah, so I don't disown, I fully embrace that activist identity. And I am an activist. I've organized people a lot. I've organized protests. I've organized prayer rallies. I've organized email campaigns and helping out things. And I engage in social media to bring awareness to a variety of topics. I write for blogs. So that is something that I fully embrace. And I think my idea of activism flows directly from my Christian faith, my Christian identity, my Christian conviction. The kingdom of God is a protest to the empire. Right? The kingdom of God speaks prophetically and against the kingdom of the world. Yeah. And so our lives are a witness. Our lives are, prophetic acts of testimony to the kingdom, and we condemn things that are evil. So you will always find me condemning
racism. You'll condemning economic exploitation, hate and bigotry in variety of forms, primarily because the kingdom of God eclipses the kingdom of this world with, the life of goodness and justice and peace, shalom, love, community, and full restoration and redemption of creation. So I fully embrace that activist identity because I think as Christians, our lives ought to protest things that are broken in the world. Yeah.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess one of the core goals of this interview is to talk about family, and with this specific interview, we wanted to step into policing and the effect it has primarily on Latino and African American communities and or Latino and African American families. So when thinking about that, I guess the first question I want to ask you, obviously we know that minority communities are policed disproportionately.
Yep.
What do you think, just this can be as general or specific as you want it to be, what do you think the effect of that is on the family sphere in those communities?
I mean, it has a variety of effects. So in some communities, you have, particularly in poor communities of color and under-resourced communities, places that lack access to education, particularly education or knowledge of their legal rights. You'll tend to have, within those communities, an abuse of power. So if, for example, you have a young man who's 15, pulled over by police, he happens to be smoking weed or has something like that on him, those kinds of, that kind of thing can have, it can create a lot of barriers. If you're a poor family, you don't have money to pay for an attorney.
Yeah.
Then you have to find yourself a public defender, and then that's time. You want to connect with the church or someone who's going to be able to say, hey, this young person is a good, upstanding person. So there's the time for networking, there's time in court, there's the emotional energy, there's financial money on clerk fees, and if you are over policed and you have like you end up having a probation officer, you have to pay probation fees as well, parole fees. So those kinds of strains can really, really hurt a family. It's not abstract like police just make me feel afraid. They have very real, concrete ramifications on families. And fear is a very real thing. If, for example, in some communities, you feel like, or not feel like, that police aren't necessarily there to protect you, but they're there to react to crime. You don't necessarily feel that police officer is an advocate for you, or is a protector of you, or is a supporter of you. You begin to feel like your space is being occupied. And that, again, could have very, very, that could generate atmospheres of mistrust. So I think, and those things have direct connections to families. I have a brother in prison. And so even just the time, so when I go and visit him, before he was in Pinckneyville, which was about 6 hours south in the state of Illinois. If I'm driving down, I have to plan on more than just visiting him. So if I'm personally driving, that means I cannot text message anyone because I'm driving. And then once you go inside of the correctional facility, you actually have to leave your phone and your wallet and your everything else except your keys in the car. So then you sign up. You have to wait, and typically waiting time to visit to see an inmate is about 2 hours. And then when you visit the inmate, that's about a 4-hour visit, and then you drive back another 6 hours. So you have to plan, even when I'm visiting my brother, I have to plan literally on an entire day being away from my phone. For some people that's hard.
Yeah.
And that might not, or it's some people that's easy, but for others like myself who have, most of my work communication relies on like access to email.
Yeah.
So there's that, but then there's also, you have to literally block out an entire day when you're visiting a relative.
Wow.
An entire day of driving, of waiting, and for that short period of time of seeing and then driving back. If you leave at like 6 a.m., you probably still won't get home until about midnight that night.
Yeah.
Because say visitation is over around 5.
Yeah.
You make it back in 6 hours. You know, that's you. If you're lucky, you'll make it back at 11 p.m. But then there's gas stops, there's food, there's all that stuff that you need to do.
Yeah.
So you literally have to block out an entire day.
Yeah.
And that can be exhausting.
Wow.
That 4-hour period is draining.
Yeah.
And can make even driving back hard, emotionally draining. So, yeah, no, it's very real. Yep.
So, when we look at books like The New Jim Crow and documentaries like The 13th, and we see the, I guess, crazy levels of mass incarceration and removal of men from households.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? What do you think the effect that has?
Yeah, no, that's a very, very good question. I'm glad you asked. Yeah, mass incarceration has had a direct effect on the black family.
Yeah.
Michelle Alexander, who wrote The New Jim Crow, wrote an article, and I can't remember exactly who it was for, but if you get a chance, you should look it up. It's called, it's like All the Black Men, Where Have All the Black Fathers Gone, or something like that. I think that's the title of it, but she wrote it.
Yeah.
And basically the argument is, we tend to hear, one of the arguments that's often thrown at black families.
Yeah.
You look at, say, a neighborhood like Lawndale or Inglewood on the south side of Chicago, and you say the problem with these communities has nothing to do with systemic racism or anything structural.
Yeah.
The problem is that dads just need to be more involved in their families' lives.
Yeah.
But that's just not true. But let's just say that it is true. Where is all the what happened to all the parents?
Yeah.
And I want to say that the number, I think it's like 1 in 3 black males between the ages of 18 to 27 are under some form of correctional supervision.
Wow.
So if it's probation, parole, or they're in prison. That has a direct effect on the nuclear family.
Yeah.
If the father's away, the father can't parent. If the father is on parole, a lot of poor black men who are on parole oftentimes, like the first time my brother went to prison, he was on house arrest when he came out.
Yeah.
That's often usually the case for a lot of guys as soon as they get out. Let's say they get out and they're on parole, they can't take their children out.
Yeah.
If you're on probation, there's just a variety of different loopholes you have to go through in order to go to different places, and some places will restrict you from being around certain people or being around certain. So even just being a father under the current criminal justice system for black men is not the same as what it would be for a white person living in Wheaton. So yeah, no, it's having a direct effect on the lives of black youth.
Yeah.
Black fathers.
Another question similar to that, when we, a lot of people say ICE, the immigration, I forgot the acronym, Immigration Control and Enforcement Agency has been setting up checkpoints, not only in Chicago, but across the nation, and is literally picking up people with the intent to deport them. What do you think will be the long-term effect? I guess because we've seen the effect of removing, I guess, the father figure from a lot of black households. But now we're stepping into removing children or aunts and uncles and mothers from these households. What are your thoughts on what might the effect of that be on Latino families?
My immediate thought, and if you don't mind, I can look up even...
yeah, go ahead.
Angela Davis, who has done just a lot of work on before Michelle Alexander has, on the prison industrial complex, mass incarceration. Let me find this. Okay, yeah. Angela Davis, in her book, Freedom is a Constant Struggle, says that the most profitable sector of the private prison business is composed of immigration detention centers. One can understand why the most repressive anti-immigrant legislation in the United States was drafted by private prison companies as an undisguised attempt to maximize their profits. So there is a direct connection between profit and there's a connection between profit, immigration legislation, and the prison industrial complex, mass incarceration. I mean, so yeah, I think we should be thinking a lot about I think like a fundamental question that we need to ask is, are families more important? Are families more important than money? If families are more important than money, then we need to be able and willing to prove that in our legislation, to show that in our policy and our law enforcement as well.
Yeah, that is amazing.
Yeah.
I guess I have one final question for you.
Yeah.
You talked a little bit about your brother.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want your brother to be a loss as a number.
Yeah.
So I guess what would you want people to know about your brother?
He's a writer. He's an entrepreneur. Before he went to prison, he started a dog breeding business. He would breed American Pit Bull Terriers.
Wow.
And a lot of his, and within like the contract, like when you purchase a dog from him, like one of the clauses in the contract shows that, because a lot of people abuse American Pit Bull Terriers, they fight them.
Yeah.
And so that if you were to fight these animals, not only could one person sue you, but he could sue you and he can get the dog back. So he was a huge advocate for that dog breed.
Yeah.
He was just incredible, thoughtful entrepreneur, a freakishly talented writer, a very compassionate, generous, giving human being, and just a hilariously, just a funny dude, goofy. I mean, some of the things that I feel like that come to mind, I wouldn't even be able to say on this camera because of just how inappropriately humorous he is. But yeah, just a lively personality. Even last time I saw him, his spirits were just so high.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for watching this interview with Matt Vega. Thank you so much, Matt.
Yeah, thanks so much for.
This is Leonard Blair.